Smiling Buddha Cabaret was a rough place, sometimes a violent place, but through it all, it acted as a refuge for the punk rock community, a second home for kids and artists who didn't quite fit into the norm of society at the time.
It's not like the way punk rock's perceived now. Punk rock now is like, it's a genre or a style. In those days, it was perceived by a lot of people as a threat.
You may forget just how violent and ugly the streets were. In the late 70s when punk rock hit Vancouver, this was a time when you would look a little bit different on the street and you would be hunted down, chased, and have the fuck beat out of you.
In fact, I got viciously Thailand. That's true, I forgot about that.
Some really good moments there. I can remember, like, the first time that kind of English style pogoing, kind of like taking place in Vancouver, and there was, a really good, pogo thing going on.
It was a beautiful week, the first week where you went in there. You got, it was the days where you, to play in a bar, you played a week, and of course you didn't get paid anything at Smiling Buddha.
It was a hole. It was black, it was dirty, and it was cockroaches, and it was the stage was barely hammered together, and the bathroom was a mess.
My first impression was the smell. There was a terrible 50-year-old smell.
It was kind of a sanctuary. Everybody there was there for the same reason. It was, it was a good crowd. It was fun. It was safe.
It was awesome. It was home.
It was kind of a dive, but it was perfect for what we were into.
I thought this was a perfect dive. It's great. I can spill beer on the floor. I can swear. I can jump around.
The toilet in the Smiling Buddha. Oh my God. If you were stuck and you had to go, man, and it was like there's graffiti everywhere, and you're like, what is that wetness there?
That's our most memorable evening at the Buddha, when we had sex in the boys' bathroom, while the boys went to the bathroom with the door open.
It was really, really tight. When you came in, I mean, it's like the Cheers song, like everyone knew you. And it was great. It was a place to connect, and it was our tribe, and we were really glad to have found each other.
It was like a clubhouse. There were other people that came for shows and stuff, but most of us just went. So, I always joke that if there's pictures of a crowd, I'll be at the front with my back to the band, like chit-chatting, because it was so social and it was so fun.
People mostly got along and it was fun, and you have to keep things in context. Remember around that time, you had a choice of like going to the disco bar or the top 40 bar.
Part of the punk ethos was getting involved, and punk rock happens, you get very excited, and a lot of people you talk to about this will say, well, what do I do? How do I become involved?
It was very cohesive, very supportive, very much reminded me of the kind of hippie scene in the 70s, only with different clothes, right? There was a lot of bonding, a lot of kids supporting each other.
I think a lot of people who make art in this city have been touched by going to the Buddha.
It was more of an art movement to me. It was an art movement that refused to call itself an art movement.
Some people picked up a camera and became photographers.
I guess the thing that I would say about going to the Smiling Buddha for the first year was the women. They were my friends, and they weren't people that I knew before I set foot in the Smiling Buddha.
Some people decided to become musicians right away, and I just thought, I know I could do a fanzine, and so that was going to be how I contributed and participated in the punk rock scene.
You never have to worry about sort of running into a bad apple there, like.
I think later you did.
Yes, probably.
Yeah.
And maybe that happened, and that's why we stopped going. I don't know.
The Buddha was, despite the kind of reputation of the punks and how sort of lowbrow the area was, and the Smiling Buddha being known as Vancouver's oldest cabaret, and also one that was on the downside, shall we say, right? That there really was like very little trouble.
The big thing about the Buddha was the people. What a collection of characters. There was a bunch of James Deans in there, and some Sid Viciouses, Joe Strummer wannabes, and just a lot of really cool guys and gals. Yeah, and you could smell the history when you walked in there. A lot of spit on that stage.
Every band that played there during the punk rock heyday of 1978, I guess, 79, 80, 81, spitting on the artist was fair play and was accepted.
They would throw beer, spit. I don't know how that got started, but that was just part of the culture.
I just heard about it. Just punk rock shows were happening there, and I was too young to get in. So our plan was to start a band so we could go see other bands.
It was pretty awesome, just because of you already knew the history of the place, and it was a place that already had a bit of a mystique.
To me, the scene at that time wasn't just punk rock. It was all called punk rock or post-punk, whatever, but it was any kind of band. I mean, you had You Jerks and all these other bands and Pointed Sticks and whatever. There were any kind of band that just did their own thing, and that was the spirit of that's the spirit of what I call punk rock anyways.
People were playing their own music. And because we were sort of pro musicians, there was people up there that, had just picked up a guitar and were doing an artistic thing that still made sense, right? So it gave us like a sense of, yeah, we can do this. We can play our own music and not get fired.
It was one of these sort of unique melting pots of all these different bands that would come in and, had all these different genres of music. And you had the art bands and you had the hardcore bands, and basically they all sort of started to form in this period where there was there was things happening in London and there was things happening in New York.
My favorite shows that I ever saw there, 5440, and I went. I'd never heard them before. I'd heard their record and I liked it, but I went to see the band. No one was there, and the atmosphere. Slightly dangerous, slightly off the beaten path.
I'm gonna go on better soon. My ride is gone away. I never stop the play. Don't lie to the woman in your bed. Shake hands with the killer in your head. You don't seem like people to me. Inside there's always a door that lets you out to escape. Shake hands with the killer in your head. Don't lie to the devil in your bed.
Our first show at the Smiling Buddha Cabaret was December 31st,
It was also our first show, period.
Our first show ever was at the Smiling Buddha Cabaret, December 31st, 1980. So going into 1981.
I'm sure it inspired the whole grunge thing in Seattle, which there's been influences there that it's like we were ahead of our time.
The gig I remember, the only band that made an impression on me that I remember from seeing the Buddha was East Van Halen. I thought these guys have got something going on.
It was where we got in touch with the adult world, basically. you know, like we were kids, but we wanted to be adults. And because they let us in the back door, you know, and that's how you get in there, right? Like, oh, come on, hurry up, kids, come on, hey, hurry, you know, and then you'd be in and you'd be an adult.
And just the vibe, it was just like I said before, like family, and it just felt like I was, I'd grown up.
Toddzilla was my all-time favorite show. So Toddzilla was a band with
Todd, who was a brother of the drummer.
He was the monster.
Yeah, and Eddie and his team had built this huge city.
And he dressed as Godzilla.
And he came out like Godzilla and smashed it.
Dimwit drummed, and he was Mount Fuji, and he had this huge
cone on his head because he was a mountain.
And then other people in the band were buildings in Tokyo.
It was the end of Tokyo, so there was supposed to be smoke. So we had a toaster.
And he had these loaves of white bread, and he just burnt Jesus out of it.
All the smoke went into the funnel. Well, that was kind of like what we were thinking because it was going to come out the front, but we forgot that Bob's head was in there.
Like there was just smoke all over the place.
So one night I went down, it was like a rainy Tuesday or Wednesday in the fall in Vancouver. This was probably 1978, and the Subhumans were playing, and the 6 cops, I think, come in, and I guess they recognized me.
The cops waited in there and hauled Joey and everybody else out of there.
I don't know, I remember Joe was in there. I think he had a big table of like people.
I don't know, about 12 of us in the drunk tank, and in the women's drunk tank there was about 8 or 10 of the girls that had been at the show, right? So,
you know, but then cops just came in, and I think, you know, they just, you know, kind of dragged him out. It seemed like there was no provocation.
Laid beaters on the restrooms, basically.
We were all kicked out, and we went to the cop shop, which was just on Main.
the people that didn't get arrested at the show, like another 20 people or something like that, they came down and did a little sit-in in the check-in desk of the police station.
Some kind of vigil happening down at the police station, so we sat there until dawn when they were all released.
And so all of us marched there. I think they must have been holding someone because we all went in there, and my friend Kathy, I'll just leave it to Kathy, she jumped up on the counter.
That basic chanting, free the punks, free the punks, free the punks type thing, right? And this ended up being making the front page of the province newspaper, the Vancouver Sun. They had a picture of us in the Georgia Strait. So this actually really blew up in the police's face because it was like nothing was going on. They just decided to arrest everybody, rough us up, throw us in the drunk tank, and then let us go in 5 in the morning because they couldn't stand these 20 people going, free the punks, right?
You know, it's probably just one of those show of force kind of things to, like, you know, make sure we didn't get too uppity or something.
I don't care for what they say, I don't care for what they do. I just know I'm sick of this crowd and of you. The cops, they took me and beat me blue. It wasn't what was or what I do. Hey, it was just being alive on my own side. I took a chance on the other side. Gone up this, down his side. I stopped wasting my time.
On my top 10 most wanted list, the Smiling Buddha was way up there. So I was absolutely thrilled when 5440 through Brad Merritt approached the museum and agreed to make the donation to our collection. You can see we've placed it in our 1960s and 70s gallery where I think it's really anchors this corner where we're talking about.
I was one of the people that saw it in the paper that the sign had been taken down and it was destined for the scrap heap.
He said, we have to save the sign. Those were his words, we have to save the sign. I'm thinking we have to go down there and buy it.
I can't remember what it cost. I think it was less than $3,000, but it was somewhere around there.
It was a huge sign. It was approximately 9 feet wide, 4 feet
tall.
Eventually we restored one side of it, and we built a case for it and used it, titled an album called Smiling Buddha Cabaret, and used graphic design of the sign, and also took it on the road.
Across Canada and upper state New York, that sign saw a lot of miles. The sign itself and the Smiling Buddha legend, I guess, is well traveled that way.